Hello grade 10s, it's Miss Van Sale, and I'm going to just give you a brief outline on what a cell looks again, what it looks like, and then we are going to continue again with a few previous test and exam questions, which I think is very relevant on the structure, and it will also help you to be able to answer some of the questions when you get into the test and not hesitate when you see the question and be scared to answer a certain question and so forth. So what I did was I made you a drawing of a cell. Please, you will see that, and you can label, and I think what I would actually advise is to go and draw one, and if you have colored paper, to make one in your books and go and label and say for yourself, the outside, the green part is my cell wall. So I know, what does my cell wall do? It protects. So please, then you can either abbreviate your things and what it means and etc. So for you to make it easier when you study and so forth and know what it does. Then you can also say, yes, this is my cell membrane. What does my cell membrane do? My cell membrane makes sure that it only allows certain things to pass in and out. It is the exchange from the cell and its environment. It controls the movement of substances. It helps with osmosis, diffusion, and it helps with the transport of ingestion and egestion in and out of the cell. It is also flexible for the cell to grow and to move certain ways. So the cell membrane also helps in that situation. Then we have our nucleus inside of the cell. So we have a nucleus. And the nucleus, as we said, is the largest organelle in the cell. It is there to distinguish between animals and plant cells. It helps you with the function of genes expressions. It facilitates in replication, in metabolic functions, etc. So your nucleus inside of the cell is there. You also have a nucleolus inside of the nucleus. And the nucleolus plays a part where it contains the RNA to build proteins, and it helps to disappear when cells divide. It makes ribosomes that in the end makes proteins. Then you have the cytoplasm. Please remember that the cytoplasm is everything around. It's all of these around. So you can maybe just make a label for yourself like this. Cytoplasm is all the around liquid and gel-like structure, mixture. Then you have your endoplasmic reticulum. Please remember that it is around the nucleus. You will see that you have your smooth ones, and then you have your rough. Please remember that the rough also plays a part in your ribosomes. So I just labeled it on here, your ER, your endoplasmic reticulum. And as I said, those are your smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and those are your rough endoplasmic reticulum. Then your ribosomes. Your ribosomes, as we said, is found on the ER as shown there. And it's also found inside of your cell, anywhere inside. So you can go and say that's also called ribosomes. Okay, there as well. Then you also find your mitochondria. Let's put it there. Mitochondrion. And what does your mitochondria do? Again, remember, it's transforms nutrients, it stores lots of proteins, it helps with cellular respiration, energy production, which is very important for ATPs, and which is your energy source for your cell. Then your chloroplast that is inside. Let me just put it on there. Your chloroplast. What does our chloroplast again do? It helps with the green color of your plant, and it gives the plant its color with photosynthesis, which is very important. Then your Golgi bodies. Let's put it there. What does your Golgi body do again? It helps to transport the protein that was made from where it was made to where it is required. So it's, like we said, it's your filing cabinet. It sorts. It makes sure that everything is where it's needed, where it needs to go, where it needs to function, etc. Then your lysosome, as I showed you, but that you can't really see inside the thing. And then your vacuole. Let's make space, also big, your vacuole. And what does your vacuole do? Your vacuole is there to help contain water. Make sure the plant maintain its shape. Remember, it's only found in plant cells. Make sure that it removes also and helps with digestion, and what shouldn't be there, that it's broken down and it's outside. So this was just a summary of everything that we've done, where it is situated in your thing. Please, as I said, go and do yourself or draw yourself a drawing. Make sure that you say, this is our energy. It helps with ATP. It helps with this. This is our gel-like. It helps with transport. It gives us our green color. So make sure that you have a basic and a summary of everything in the cell that makes it easier for you to study and to know the different parts in your cell. So that was just a little drawing of what it looks like. This is just a complete drawing with everything inside, all the things that we didn't discuss, like the nuclear membrane, let's say the amyloplasts, etc. So this was just a complete drawing of what we've discussed just now. Here just also differentiate between the rough and the smooth, etc. So now I want us to discuss and quickly look at the following question. The following question was an essay question in the exam, and it's a big question on the cell structure. So in this paper, there weren't a lot of questions, short questions, in section A and in section B. Remember, section A is your short monkey puzzles, one-word answers, labeling, etc. questions, where question B is your shorter type answers, maybe a tabulate question or lists, etc. And then you get your section C, which is an essay question. Now remember, they say you cannot be awarded anything of a flowchart, tables, and diagram. I know that they do allow to answer in bullets. Make sure that you summarize with a heading, put a little bit of a body, and then the functions, and again a subheading, etc. of the whole part in the cell. So if you're going to look at the question stated, section C, question 4, describe the structure and functions of the nucleus, the cell membrane, and ribosomes in a cell. Also state 2 differences between plants and animal cells. Now remember, we already went through the tables where it was the differences between plants and animal cells, and now we're just going to have to answer this in a little bit more detail. Remember, there's a lot of reasons at each of them, but you just have to give, as I said, describe and label. So when you're going to start something like that, I want you to break down the question and start at a certain point and work down. So what did we start with? It says, describe the structure and function. So for each of the following, for the nucleus, the cell membrane, and the ribosomes, we have to describe the structure of each and their function. So please don't look at the last question already. Remember, that is our end line. So start at the top and work downwards. So what we're going to do is, it says describe the structure of the nucleus. So then I would advise you to start with the nucleus. Okay? Make that your heading. Your subheading will then be the structure. So we're going to have to talk about the structure of the nucleus. What does it look like? Where does it fit in, etc. So let's quickly talk about the structure. Now, the structure, it's surrounded by a double nuclear membrane. So then you write surrounded Remember, you can make that your first bullet. Then, the outer membrane can be connected to the ER. Getting back to our picture, you can agree that this was our nucleus, and on the outside, connected to it, was our ER. So, that is where they say, and they state and say, the outer membrane can be connected to the ER. Please, you can abbreviate the endoplasmic reticulum as ER. Then, the fluid content is the nucleoplasm. So, inside our nucleus is the nuclear plasm. So, the fluid content is the nuclear plasm. You can also say it contains the nucleolus. And the chromatin network. Remember what I said? It was the winded up chromosomes inside of your nucleus, which eventually gives you your DNA. So and contains your chromatin network, your chromosomes. Remember, each and every organism has a different set of chromosomes, which makes us unique. And then you can say the nucleolus consists mainly of nucleic acid. So the nucleolus consists acids. So that was just describing the structure of our nucleus. Now please, usually they will say max, you're only going to be marked for 3 of the questions. So if you're going to write 10, they're only going to give you marks for 3. So what you basically could have said is, please, you have to divide your thing also up. It was a mark out of 15. So you have to divide it up for yourself to make sure that I'm not going to write an essay or a page on just the nucleus, because I'm not going to get all my marks on just writing on the nucleus, because you have to divide it up in all of the different sections that they asked. So that was our structure. Remember, then they also asked us for what is the function of our nucleus, because we have to do both for each one that they asked for. So then you would write function and go and discuss what is the function. It controls the structure and the properties of the cell, controls structure and properties of the cell, as well as it carries your hereditary characteristics, remember, from parent to offspring. of the person, of the organism that it is dealt with. So please, then we just discussed the nucleus. So one part is finished. Again, even though I have written 6 different structure components, you're only maybe going to be marked 3 or 2 marks for each. So make sure that you only need to choose a certain amount and make sure that it fits into your time frame that you have to write the test, etc. Then they asked you to do the cell membrane. So you're going to start exactly the same as what you've done the nucleus, and you're going to give yourself another subheading by saying cell membrane. And I'm going to start with the structure of the cell membrane. Again, discuss it, make sure that you know what is the structure, and then you go over to the functions. So you compile and complete, and I almost want to say that you finish it off one section and move to the next. Don't mix it up and say, write one on nucleus, one on cell membrane, one on ribosomes, because then it makes the examiner also confused on what are you trying to say, and usually I think then they're going to think you don't know your work. So summarize it according to the specific topic that you're busy with. So looking at the cell structure, or the cell membrane structure, you can agree that it consists of an outer and an inner layer. So if you're going to look at the cell membrane, remember the membrane is the one going around. So it has an outer and an inner layer of protein molecules. So let's just say consists of outer and inner layer of protein molecules. And it has 2 layers of fat molecules. Please, you can bullet it again, maybe just to distinguish between the two. 2 layers of fat molecules. You can say that the proteins change their position. Change their position. Like the fluid mosaic model that you have done. Then you can also say that the cell membrane is an active part of the living cell. Remember, as I said, some parts just plays a more important role like others. Remember, we said the cell membrane also makes sure that certain things enter and exit the cell. So the cell membrane is an active part of the living cell. And then you can also say it is selectively or differentially permeable. What does that mean again? It always only allows certain things to exit and enter the cell. So it is selectively or let's say differentially permeable. So that again just concludes our structure. Please again, you didn't need 5 points, maybe 1 or 2 to make sure that you complete the whole bunch. Again, I think it was max 3 that you had to answer, or max 2 answers for that. Then the functions of the cell membrane is that it only, since it is selectively permeable, or differentially, it doesn't matter which one you choose, permeable, that it permits only certain substances, only certain to enter and exit. So it's only going to allow certain things to enter and exit. Again, that then just discuss our cell membrane as the second part of the question. We've discussed the nucleus, we've discussed the cell membrane, and both of them we've discussed the structure and the functions. Then we can move over to the ribosomes in your cell. You're going to do the same. You can give it a heading and say ribosomes. Let me rather write on a new page. Heading, and then you write again structure. And what is our structure for the ribosomes? Remember, when you look at the ribosomes, they are extremely small. You see, when they are, remember the cell is already small and microscopic small. So then you can imagine how small are these ribosomes in your cell. So your first structure is they are small and dense. They are small and dense organelles. As well as they either occur where? They either occur on the ER or in groups in the cytoplasm. Remember our cell drawing, if I bring it in again, they are on the rough ER, or either do you see they are in bundles everywhere inside the cell. So they occur in a group inside the cytoplasm. What is the function of the ER? The function of that, it involves in the synthesis of proteins. Now please, the synthesis of proteins, you just learn that that is what they do. But as soon as you get into grade 12, you are going to do protein synthesis when you do DNA replication. And when you do DNA replication, you're going to talk in much more detail of what the ribosome's position is when you do my DNA replication in protein synthesis, which is very important. And then that is it for the functions. So you can agree that we've discussed the structure and the functions of both the nucleus, cell membrane, and ribosomes. So our one part of the question is done. But we still had a last part, which they said is state two differences between the plant cells and the animal cells. Now remember in a previous question, they asked you to say what was visible, because they gave you two pictures which you could look at, and you had to say what was visible, what was the visible differences between the plant and the animal cell. But here they gave you an essay question. So as soon as you have an essay question, you can have any difference between the two because you don't have any picture to look at. So you can say any of the differences, not only specific ones, as in the previous question. So our next one stated the differences. So you could now say the differences between plant and animal cells. And then you could just name whatever you want. You can say in plants, please remember when we did this in the previous question, we tabulated. Remember what they stated here. No marks for flow charts, tables, or diagrams. So don't tabulate the following question. Have it as is, please. So in plants, the cell wall is present and absent in the animal cell. Then you could have also said in plants, in plant cells, plastids. Names of plastids are present. So you could say plastids are present and in animals they are absent. Then you can say in plants the vacuole is big, and in animals they are either smaller or absent. So you can say in plants the vacuole is big, and in animals they are smaller. And remember, they have different types. Guys, but you could really answer any of the questions that we said when we did that. Any of the reasons of the differences you can discuss there, which are important for you. Remember, they didn't say you have to say a certain few or give a certain answers of it. You can say what you think and what you know. So if you wanted to say that the animal cell is large with a regular shape, you said that. You could say that. If you wanted to say that the plant cell is smaller and an irregular shape, you can say that. But please, they are only going to, they said, was only 2 differences. So if you're going to answer 5, they're not going to answer or give you all the marks. So you're going to waste your own time at a certain question. So please also stay with what they ask you and what they expect from you. So only answer what is necessary. Please also don't write different sentences and scenarios, because then to the examiner it really looks like you're not sure on what to say. So be direct and exact and to the point of what is asked of you, and don't make up a whole story along the way. Make sure you answer exactly what was asked of you. So that was question, our essay question that was asked. The next question that we're going to discuss again is a bit shorter question, just to light up what we have done. A lighter question, it was question 3. Usually question 3 is part of section B. So you will see that it says study the following diagrams of cells. It gave you 2 different diagrams again. And again, they wanted you to answer which diagram represents a plant cell. So please, you must be able to distinguish between a plant and an animal cell. You have to know it has a big, small shape. So understand which is who. So automatically, the easiest thing I would advise you is to say the vacuole. It gives it away from point 1. So you can agree with me that the second one, number B, or diagram 2, is your plant cell. Then they asked you, give 2 visible. Remember, visible means what you can see on your drawing, which makes your answer for question 3.1.1 correct. So what makes it a plant cell? So you can agree with me that you could see that there's chloroplast present, which gives you your cell color present. Then you can also agree the large vacuole that was seen on top of it. And then you can agree that, do you see there's a double wall? So we have a cell wall present. And that is what can be seen. Remember, it must be able to see on the picture. Then for question 3.1.3, it says, give the letter and name. So here you have to give both. Please, sometimes we are in a hurry and we only give the letter or only the name. Please, then you're going to be only marked for the one that you provide. So make sure that you give the letter and the name where the specific thing takes place. So it says, give the letter and the name of the structure responsible for protein synthesis. Remember I said protein synthesis you're only going to do in detail when you get grade 12. And we've discussed it just now. It's the small dots on your thing. It's also on your ER. So you can agree with me that it is represented by S. And it's called your ribosomes. Then storing substances, which one has the function of storing substances? And you can agree with me that it's going to be P, your vacuole. So please, remember your letter and this. It doesn't matter if you put the name first and then the letter, but make sure that both is present. Then the last question here stated 3.1.4. Ask, explain how the shape of Collenchyma cells differ from the basic structure of a plant cell. So you have to basically explain how the shape of Collenchyma differs from the basic structure of the plant cell. How it differs. So firstly you must say that the cell wall are unevenly thickened. It's not the same thickness all around. And most thickening occurs on the corners of the cell wall. And most of the thickenings. Corners of the cell wall. Most of the things were at the corners of the cell wall. So please remember that they were unevenly thickened, the cell wall, and most of the thickenings were at the cell wall corners. That was question 3. Then I have another question which followed on this one. Question 3.2. Question 3.2 said, the following diagrams illustrate the result of an investigation done to determine how two organelles can be dependent on one another. So how do they depend on one another for them to do their certain functions, to provide for the cell, etc. So what do they have to do on one another? So these were really short questions, as you can see. 2 marks, 2 marks, 1 mark, 1 mark. Also beforehand, make sure what is the mark count, so that you don't write 4 or 5 sentences, but they only expect 1 mark from you. So please then, to the point, quick answers. So if you're going to look at your picture, they said you must first identify organelle A and organelle B. We first had to identify them. And if we're going to identify organelle A, we can see that it's the mitochondria, our energy source. So it's our mitochondrion. And organelle B will then be our chloroplast. In our cell. So that was for question 2.1. 1 mark each, so just the name. Just identify your organelles. The second one says, give the process of which each of the organelle mentioned in question 3.2.1 is responsible for. So we must say, what process does the mitochondria do? What process does the chloroplast do? Now, remember the mitochondria is there for your energy. So what do we need energy for? We need it to breathe. So we can say that the mitochondria is there for cellular respiration, for us to function. And chloroplast, remember, gives the green color, so it is there for us to make photosynthesis happen. So it's basically the function of the chloroplast. What's happening when you're busy with that? Then they said 3.2.3 says, use the linear scale to estimate the actual length of organelle C. So they told you that it is 1 micrometer. So please guys, then you would agree with me that of course your scale would be 1 micrometer. Please remember to add your units. You are going to lose your 1 mark if you don't add your units at the back. So please don't just write 1, write your units at the back. And then the last question says, the letter R represents one of the factors needed for the process taking place in organelle B. What does R represent? Now remember, our organelle B is our chloroplast, which does photosynthesis. And what external factor do we need for photosynthesis to take place on the inside of the cell? And you can agree that we need sunlight. We need the rays of the sun, the heat, for photosynthesis to take place. So our external factor will be sunlight. So please again, 1 mark. Short and sweet answers, quick answers for you to get easy and as I said, quick answers. Then I gave you another question. The basic units of life. So what I want you to do here is, I want us to quickly just go through them. And this was a very nice question because it was usually after your multiple choice questions, you have short and easy answers. So where it says, give 1 biological term, mix column A by column B, or out of the 2 options, then they give you a scenario and they say, is it A or B? So then you have to choose option A or B. So give the correct biological term for each of the following is also a quick answer that you can give to a certain thing, which have your certain marks. So if you're going to move back to the paper, you can agree with me. The first question stated, let's move back. An organism that does not have a true nucleus. An organism that does not have a true nucleus. Now, if you're going to rewind back to the start, when we had our prokaryotes and eukaryotes, we said that the main thing that distinguishes the two is a nucleus. So the one which does not have a nucleus must not be the animals and the cells. So totally then, our answer would be prokaryotes. So an organism that does not have a true nucleus is a prokaryote. Then the next question says, organisms that are made up of a single cell. So a single cell is like the bacteria, which we will discuss more in grade 11, and that is unicellular. Please, unicellular means 1, only 1 cell. Then 1.3 stated, organisms with true nucleus enclosed by a nuclear membrane. And that is the opposite now of prokaryotes, because we have a membrane, we have a outside, we have a nucleus, which is very important. So of course it has to be the opposite of our prokaryotes, so which is our eukaryotes property, because it contains a nucleus. The number 4 stated a basic unit of life. Now, what is the basic unit of life? And we started the session on that. We said the basic unit of life is cells, because everything starts at a single cell. So our word is cells. And then the last one said small membranes, bound structures with special functions found inside the cell is then our organelles. So small membranes, bound structures with special functions found inside the cell is our organelles. So guys, that was just short, quick questions 1 mark. Please, a biological term literally means you answer a word. It's a short word. It's not a sentence. We don't want a statement or a function. So it's literally a word that describes the sentence that is provided to you. I quickly want to end off with the last question 2. Do you see that the similarities in all of the questions that I've done so far is usually they give you 2 pictures and you have to differentiate and see what it is, know the functions, know what it does, know the processes of the functions, etc. So in this scenario, they said study the diagram below and answer the questions that follows. In this one, they actually told you that it's a plant and an animal cell. So they told you and they gave you already, so you did not have to distinguish between the two. You did not have to tell me which one's a plant, which one's an animal. It was provided. So the questions here said, which parts of the plant cells labeled A to K correspond with the parts of the cell of the animal cell labeled X, Y, Z? In each case, name the corresponding part and redraw the table to answer the questions. Please, as soon as they ask you to redraw, draw the table, because that is how they wanted the question to be answered. So what they want is, they want to say X, Y, and Z, with what does it correspond in this question? And we have to name the structure. So if you're going to look in depth, you can agree that is our nucleus. So our nucleus in this one is there because you see in Nucleolus, Nucleolus. So the structure that corresponds is F, and it's also called our nucleus. Then, Y, do you agree it cannot be the cell wall? Because does an animal cell have a cell wall? No. So automatically we're going to look at the cell membrane. So the cell membrane is going to be number B. Please, not D, because D was our cell wall. And remember, the animal cell does not have a wall. It only has a membrane. So it's going to be B, cell membrane. And then the last one, number Z. Remember, it's the gel-like fluid inside, which is called our cytoplasm. So the cytoplasm would be our G on this side. Cytoplasm. So in the first one, we just had to correspond between the cell in the animal and what it's basically similarities. It's things that they have the same, which is alike, and in both cells. The second question said, 2.1.2, identify the structure of the plant cell that consists of cellulose. So what does the cellulose, or what contains cellulose? And remember in the previous question I said the cell wall protects. And that will be our cell wall in that case, which would be, let's write there, D cell wall. They didn't ask for a number, but I just want to show you where the cell wall is. Then, at number 2.1.3, it says, identify the structure in the animal cell that forms the spindle fibers during cell division. Remember, cell division is where we're going to do mitosis, which is after cell division, after the cell structures in your textbooks. So they want to know what is going to, or where is the spindle fibers going to be, and you will agree that it is at our centrosome in our animal cell. The next one, number 2.1.4, said, which structure in the plant cell, labeled A to G, would not be part of root cells? Explain your answer. Now please, we want to know, remember when we discussed the different cells, we said the root cells was the white cells, and then you would agree with me that in the root cells we're not going to get the chloroplasm, number H, chloroplast. Why? Because the chloroplast is there for leaves, the green color, for photosynthesis. And where is our roots? Our roots are found inside the ground where it's dark. No light is needed. So chloroplast, And please remember they said explain your answer. So you can't just have a label and just distinguish what it is. So you have to say roots are underground and does not photosynthesize. Therefore, chloroplast is absent. It does not need chloroplast because it doesn't need to photosynthesize. As I said, it's dark under the ground. It doesn't need any light. And then the last question. The last question stated, name organelle A. Give one difference of this organelle in plant and animal cell and present the difference in the table. Now please guys, organelle A is our vacuole. Do you see it's huge? So it's our vacuole, number 2.1.5. It was called our vacuole. And then they say give one difference. Remember, it can be any difference between the two vacuoles. But the main important thing here is they said tabulate. So please, that means you must draw a table. And that means you're going to get 1 mark for just representing your answer in a table. So please do the effort and put everything inside a table. Otherwise, you're going to lose 1 mark, which was really something which was easy to get. So what I would advise is draw a table. Say the one is in the plant cell and the one is in an animal cell. Remember, you only need to give 1. I'm going to give more than 1 because there's more than 1 difference. So 1 could have been, the most common one is, in a plant cell, they are quite large, and in an animal cell, they are much smaller. Also, in plants, usually there can be, there's usually 1, and a huge one. And in animals, there can be 1 or more or none. Remember, most of the time it's none. So there can be 1, more, or none, which is most of the time. And then the last one, it gives the plants rigidity, which means able to be flexible. And in animals, it can be contractile. It can transport food. And it's a vessel, let me just say, it's a vesicle or lysosomes. So please make sure that you do the labels or you do the different functions, and make sure that you draw your table. Very, very important. Make sure of that. So that was the end of the questions that I had for you. Please make sure that you focus on this. This is really a very important topic, especially because it carries over to grade 11, and in grade 12 it forms a big part of your syllabus in paper 1. As I said, DNA replication, protein synthesis can be long questions, short questions, and it's really very interesting on how it grows year by year. Make sure that you know how to label. They will never ask you to draw anymore, but make sure you know how to label, make sure you know the differences, and make sure you know the functions of each and every single thing in the cell and the animal, the plant cell and the animal cell. I hope you enjoyed this session. Study hard, work hard, and just do your best. Have a great day. Bye.